Good afternoon, and thank you for joining Downtown Cleveland Alliance for the 7th episode of the Downtown Now webinar series in partnership with Cleveland Magazine. After the panel discussion, we will have a Q&A session. Throughout the webinar, you are welcome to submit questions using the Q&A button on the menu bar. This way, we will have questions queued up and ready to go to start the Q&A. Also, feel free to write your thoughts and comments in the chat box, and we will do our best to address your comments throughout the broadcast. I will now turn it over to our Executive Vice President for Business Development, Michael Deemer. Michael.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thanks all of you for joining us this afternoon. For those of you who may not be familiar with Downtown Cleveland Alliance, I wanted to share a little bit about who we are and what we do. We're the only nonprofit organization that is dedicated solely to making downtown Cleveland the region's most compelling place to live, work, and visit. We're a place-based development organization that works with property owners, residents, small, medium-sized, and large businesses to build a clean, safe, welcoming, and pedestrian-friendly place that attracts additional investment. A place where residents and office workers can walk to meet their daily needs, where local retailers and restaurateurs animate the streets, and where people are proud to build a life for themselves and their families. A place where Clevelanders can gather and unite, whether it's celebrating milestones, creating memories with loved ones, or uniting as one community in response to grave injustices. We cannot do this work without the generous support of individuals, small businesses, corporate partners, and foundations. Downtown Cleveland needs your support now more than ever, and in response to an outpouring of support and request for ways to help, Downtown Cleveland Alliance has launched the Unite Cle Recovery Fund. Your donation to the fund will help support small downtown businesses, aid our Voices of Cle mural program, expand our Seeds workforce readiness program that provides jobs and job training for people who are homeless, and sustain our Downtown Cleveland Homeless Fund, which helps connect individuals who are homeless with shelter and much needed services. As Jonathan indicated, we launched the Downtown Now webinar series almost 2 months ago. And I'd like to thank Cleveland Magazine and Community Leader, our media sponsors. Since 2018, the Downtown Now insert in Cleveland Magazine has served to highlight downtown Cleveland and the progress that we're making. We've used the webinar series to chronicle a rapidly changing environment, utilizing the platform to share updates related to the COVID-19 pandemic, our response to the recent outcry over racial injustice, and deliver resources and updates from voices across our downtown community. I don't think it's any secret that downtown Cleveland thrives as a visitor destination. We ordinarily have the luxury of 3 professional sports facilities in the nation's best mixed-use theater district, all within easy walking distance of apartments and hotels. For the time being, we must maintain our hospitality industry, our hotels, our restaurants, shops, and entertainment venues by focusing on some of our other underlying assets, a dynamic pedestrian experience infused with historic architecture, parks, trails, in a rapidly evolving riverfront and a serene lakefront. But the challenges are big and real, and we have an ideal panel of strategic partners and key leaders with us today to talk with us about how we are tackling these challenges. We're joined today by Teri Agosta, General Manager at Hilton Cleveland Downtown, Emily Laurer, Senior Director of Public Relations and Communications with Destination Cleveland, and Joe Savarise, Executive Director from the Ohio Hotel and Lodging Association. Teri, Emily, Joe, welcome and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Hi there, thank you.
Emily, I'd like to begin with you, and I've liked to begin these webinars by turning the clock back a little bit and reminding our audience of our foundation and kind of where we began 2020, the assets that we had, the momentum that we had, and really the foundation that's still there to build off of. So I wonder if you could, it's hard because it feels like a lot longer than 6 months ago, but you kind of mentally turn the clock back and set the stage and remind us of where we were in that foundation that we're building off of.
Sure, I'd be happy to, Michael. First of all, thank you for having me this afternoon. Destination Cleveland, obviously the destination marketing and management organization for Cuyahoga County as a whole. And of course, a good portion of our visitors do stay downtown or spend time downtown. So very important part of our visitor economy. To that point where we started 2020 was with more than 19.2 million visitors coming to Cleveland every year. That's our 2018 figure. We haven't received 2019 yet, but we were very much on pace to meet our goal of 20 million visitors in 2020 when we started the year, and felt very good about that. We have spent years cultivating our relationships with locals, with residents, as a very important driver to help us get to 20 million by 2020. And in fact, just probably about a week or so after the governor put the stay-at-home order in place was the weekend that we were supposed to have our Be a Tourist in Your Hometown weekend, where we were encouraging Clevelanders to come and explore the entire area and really refamiliarize themselves or explore something new that they hadn't, to help us get to that 20 million figure. So in addition to visitors, obviously visitors bring money, and the economic impact of visitors to Cleveland was hovering a little bit over $9 billion, over $6 billion in direct sales. So we were 8 or 9 years of continued growth. So I think that we can get back to that, but the hard breaks in March will definitely present a challenge.
Well, speaking of hard breaks, Joe, I'd like to turn to you. I don't think that the hospitality industry and the hotels in particular have really experienced anything quite like COVID-19, where the bottom kind of fell out almost overnight. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how the association has been supporting and helping its members through the pandemic, and just what kinds of things your team has been working on to try to get hotels back in a position where we can have a successful hospitality industry.
Sure. The impacts on our industry impact the business as an enterprise, but also the individuals that work with them. And I just like to emphasize that is really the greatest impact that we've seen. The statistic on that is that across the state of Ohio, and this was generally true in all the markets, it was pretty much even, that 70% of the individuals who worked in hotel and lodging properties were laid off, furloughed, or let go at the peak of the impact of the pandemic. 70% of the workforce. And you're right, there never in history has been an impact of that nature. Not 9/11, not the 2008 recession, not the Great Depression, 2 world wars, or anything else that's happened. The word historic is thrown around too much, but this is historic. So one of the things that we had to make a focus was helping those individuals, because we want them to continue to be part of our industry, to be part of our destination and what makes it and the properties within it so great to those people coming into Cleveland. And that means keeping them engaged. We had educational opportunities, including some free education offerings where we lifted the price and worked with our partners at the American Hotel and Lodging Association to allow some free education and certification programs they would normally pay for. We did have a relief fund for workers that were displaced, because not everybody was able to access those benefits right away. We know that the state was just so overwhelmed. Some of it had to do with processing, and there was a gap for people in the early days. So we had a Hospitality Helping Hands Fund that we created, and that we will continue now beyond the pandemic and keep this in place forevermore as a way to help associates in hotels that are impacted by all sorts of occurrences and disasters and things that will happen throughout the years. On the business side for hotels, we've been clearly focused on building the bridge to get to the other side of the crisis, including some of the financial steps that were successful at the federal level with Congress, and some of the relief programs that will help some hotel businesses. But we're not out of the woods with that yet. We're working with state government now on how some of those CARES funds that are being directed through the state will be used to help employers and employees. There are a number of things impacting our industry in terms of financial instruments and lending that create some very significant risks for delinquencies and foreclosures and possible permanent job loss if we don't address some things structurally. So we're lobbying every day at the state and federal level, because they can both help on those things as well. but mostly it's been operational in helping our members understand, A, what they could do during the height of the pandemic, and then B, as business started to open up more, what those steps were to help keep guests and visitors and employees in all of our properties and throughout the destination healthy and safe and confident that it was safe to travel in general and to come to the destination. And with some of those rules and regulations changing on a daily basis, at the height of those changes, that was a real task because if you watched what was happening, Ohio changed the rule on face masks 5 times in 48 hours. There's this, and the governor and lieutenant governor and others have said, this is not going to be a perfect process. We were and still are dealing with a state of emergency, but by working with state and local officials in a common sense way, I think we've been able to help the hotels keep open in large part by designating them as essential businesses, which was critical, and that didn't happen in every state. And then helping them with the business that we could direct their way. And that included healthcare professionals, individuals that needed to be isolated, first responders, homeless populations. There were all sorts of people involved in pandemic response that were using hotels. Not all hotels were able to remain open because the occupancy rate almost overnight, as you said, dropped so low. It's just impossible to keep all of those enterprises running. We're starting to see things come back slowly. We're not out of the woods yet. The next thing that we need to do is work on the types of events and being able to have more events and host more business in safe ways and safe environments, in hotel environments and in our convention center and meeting facility environments. That process has started, but we've got a long way to go. And I think that our members in hotel environments and convention centers can host crowds of people at least as safe as the amusement parks, water parks, golf tournaments, and other things that are being allowed to open, and probably even more so because of our experience using floor plans and the things that we do that are part of the requirements. So that will be the next phase, is opening up more of the business to get it into our properties.
Well, Joe, you've had your hands full at the State House and at a policy level and working with members across the state. Teri, you've had your hands full in a different way, and I know we could probably spend the hour talking about a whirlwind course in crisis management. But I'd like to ask you about how you've approached your leadership over the last couple of months, because you've not only been managing crises, you have a team that you're responsible that's looking to you for leadership. You hold a leadership position in our market, in our community. How have you approached leading through this crisis? And what are some things that have worked and what are some things that haven't worked?
An interesting question, because it has been a learning, since day one. And I think one thing that has held true is that every day it's different. I think a leader is used to having a plan and working that plan, right? But that is not working in this particular environment, because every day it's different. So I think being nimble, really, and the only thing we can control is our attitude in this whole situation. I mean, we're human, so you're going to have a moment of pause and like, what is going on? But then, as a leader, you have to really keep that positive attitude, because people are looking at you, I always say, as the barometer of how they should act, right? So if you show that positive attitude, and the most important thing I think people look to for in a leader is hope, and that's in good times and bad times. They really want to know that it's going to be okay. They really want to know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. They want to celebrate the small wins, and I think we do a good job of that. As the governor has released different guidelines, we've celebrated the freedoms, and the team rallies itself around it, which it's contagious, and people are looking for those moments to kind of grasp onto, which is great. So we make a big deal of it. with the new guidelines, we're very lucky that the governor has allowed up to 300 people for an event. It's allowed us to have several weddings here already. So people are anxious to celebrate these occasions that they've kind of had to put on ice, as we say. What we're seeing differently is they want to know what we're doing, to give them confidence. And then our team members want to know what we're doing to give them confidence. So we have two levels of confidence we have to win. We have to win the confidence of the guest and the confidence of our team members. And once again, the guests are looking at our team members to see how safe they feel and how confident they feel. And if they feel that they have that can-do attitude, then they will, have a sense of relaxation and confidence themselves. So I think it's really, it boils down to being nimble and changing as the winds change, being positive with all the information you're giving it, trying to keep a positive spin on it. And then of course, showing hope, and because, we are going to get through this. I mean, we do keep getting, some bumps in the road here, some pretty big bumps in the road, right? With the unrest, which is complicated, with just, team members, maybe making different decisions about coming back to work or not, maybe needing to stay home to take care of an elderly or needing to stay home to take care of children. And then we have to kind of pivot on that. So what do we do to kind of reorg and use different team members in different spots? We're opening Bar 32 tonight, which is very exciting. It's kind of, a time to celebrate. Thank you. It's a time to celebrate that we're going to be able to open. We feel that we've got a huge momentum of local guests who want to just support the city, is what we're saying, and just celebrate life locally, be able to drive down and have a lovely evening. The weather is really cooperating, so I'm happy about that. And I think once people just have these little moments of confidence, they come out and realize they can actually share a good time with their friends and be social distance and stay safe, and know that the hotel or the restaurant or the bar has gone to the highest level of cleanliness, the highest level of keeping them safe. They're going to start building that confidence, and then they're going to say, okay, I'm going to go out to dinner, or I'm going to have my wedding, or I'm going to go to a wedding, or I might travel. It's going to be in steps. So I think the first introduction to the real world, it's important that it's positive, because then that's when confidence grows.
Well, speaking of the need to grow confidence, Joe, I want to come back to you and with your kind of industry-wide perspective and statewide perspective. What are some things that you see the industry as a whole doing, or maybe the association doing, to boost traveler confidence and to ensure that people feel comfortable coming out and staying in hotels and enjoying themselves?
A large part of that is going to center on the standards that we have, but also explain to those guests and visitors what we're doing. I will argue that hotel and lodging businesses already have some of the highest standards in terms of cleaning and disinfecting, and fighting the transmission of all disease. I started pointing that out early in March, not just coronavirus, but all disease. That historically, that's always been a focus within hotel properties. I'm old enough to remember other occurrences happening with transmission and things like Legionnaire's disease and others in hotel environments. So this has always been critical to us, but we are stepping that up. And there are several different tracks that our members and our partners will be able to work with. There is an American Hotel and Lodging Association and OHLA endorsed and implemented program for enhanced industry-wide cleaning standards for hotel and lodging properties that was vetted and developed in conjunction with CDC input, and every national brand in the United States was involved and endorses this process. If you know anything about our business, getting every brand to agree on something is not an easy thing to do. And it's developed to work in conjunction with the brand standards that the great companies like Hilton, and they've been very forward thinking and pushing ahead with what they've developed. It complements and works with that. Our properties from large to small, from one room bed and breakfast to the biggest convention center hotel in Ohio are getting this information to help infuse it into what they're thinking and doing every day. Part of that will also be, that's about being safe, but then part of that will also be telling that story and making sure that consumers and meeting planners and groups and individual travelers understand that. And that will involve some recognition activities, including compliance seals and consumer-facing materials that you can share within the hotels and signage, all things that we are developing. Teri and my members have started to see this already because we've started to push it out, but this is a brand new program at the national level that all the states and state hotel associations are working on. And that's going to be our focus here in the summer months is getting involvement in that. There are also other groups in the meeting planning and industry that is part of the travel economy that can help take it to the next step. And there will be certifications for properties like convention centers and for destinations as a whole. And the work being done by Destination Cleveland, I think is going to be a big part. And this all dovetails together and supports telling that story, that not only are we doing these things, but making sure people understand them and it's recognizable. And there will be different players in that industry, and there will be some certification providers that work with some of those larger properties and big venues like arenas and football stadiums that are more complex and more expensive for that matter too. But I think that that's a necessary and wise investment for the value of the destination, to say even our biggest venues, the arena, the ballpark, the football stadium, the convention center, all of these entities, in addition to hotels, down to restaurants and everybody up and down 4th Street, are all paying attention to it. And if I can just throw a shout out, Emily, I think that's where Destination Cleveland has really got the ball moving so that we're all working together on that.
Well, that's the perfect segue.
Yeah,
Emily, because,
teamwork.
Unplanned too, right? Unplanned.
We're talking about how, the different things that are being done to make guests feel comfortable with hotels. But we also, in order to attract guests into our downtown, we need things for them to do and see, and have a strong restaurant scene, which has always been a strength in downtown Cleveland. And I know Destination Cleveland has a great campaign that we're working together on, the Clean Committed campaign. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that and the things that Destination Cleveland is leading to help our restaurants and all the places that people want to go when they come downtown.
Happy to, Michael, and thanks for the great setup, Joe, as well as the compliment. So the Clean Committed program, we launched it just about a week ago, I think maybe 8 days, and it is initially targeted at businesses because we do our work. We're very dedicated to making sure that everything we do is data driven and research based. And what the research started showing in mid-April and into early May was that consumers said messaging around cleanliness and sanitation was important, but even more important than that were visual cues relative to cleaning and sanitation. And so what we did is, we got our group together and we wanted to figure out how we could help serve not only our hotel and lodging partners, but also our restaurants and our more than 700 hospitality and tourism partners here in Cuyahoga County and the greater Cleveland area. And so the Clean Committed program actually started with an amazing collaboration. And I think we probably all would agree that that's when the best work is done, when we collaborate. We were able to get the Cuyahoga County Board of Health, the Cleveland Clinic, the Metro Health System, and university hospitals to work with us and all agree on a set of standards that we should ask businesses to follow. Now, of course, there are industry standards as well, most of which actually probably go beyond what our standard is, but recognizing that we serve, more than 700 different organizations just as our partners and so many different businesses, we knew we had to have those standards be adaptable. So a common set of standards related to cleanliness and sanitation. And it's a super easy process. What we're asking is that business owners, particularly in downtown and throughout the county, go to our website. This is cleveland.com /clean-committed, and they take a clean commitment. They look at the standards that we've asked them to apply as they can, as is relevant to their business, and commit to following those. And you are a partner of Destination Cleveland or a restaurant in Cuyahoga County or the city of Cleveland, you can get what we are calling clean kits as part of a business kit for free. And so thanks to a generous donation from Cuyahoga County, they approved out of their federal CARES Act funding, just shy of $700,000 for us, so that every business can get a supply of these, every restaurant can get a supply, every Destination Cleveland partner we're funding to be able to get a supply of these clean kits. And what the clean kit is this is where it becomes the consumer side of things. So consumers said they wanted to see what businesses were doing. So we've provided collateral for everyone to secure if they take the clean commitment, a poster that they can hang up, a window cling that says they're clean committed, and you can go on to our website and see what that means. But then we've also, in these individual clean kits, we have a paper mask, 3 Purell hand sanitizer wipes, and a consumer information card, because I think one of the most important components of this is that there is business responsibility, but there's also consumer responsibility. And so on that small info postcard, it just talks to consumers about when they're out exploring and going to a restaurant for the first time, or maybe their second or third or 10th time, or when they're going to the Rock Hall to see the new exhibit down there, that they commit to also employing safe practices. So it's a dual responsibility. And just after about a week or so of the Clean Committed program being launched, we have more than 200 businesses that have already signed up. So we're very excited about that. We want to see that continue to grow, throughout the coming weeks. And in addition to the clean kits, I think one of the best parts, particularly for businesses that may not at this point have access to the complimentary clean kits, is through our partner Supply Side Group. We have been able to get bulk cleaning supplies at cost, at just like a really reasonable cost for businesses to order, because I think we've all seen the news stories about how hard hand sanitizer is to get, how hard thermometers are to get. And so Supply Side Group has put together a great program at a really reasonable cost for business owners to be able to order that.
Well, we're a proud partner of the campaign, Emily, and Destination Cleveland is really doing great work with it. And thank you for making all those resources available to businesses. Teri, we've talked about we're all the things that are taking place to make safe environments in hotels and make guests feel safe and welcome. Things that are going on to ensure that the restaurants are ready to go and there are places for people and guests to go and do. Now that we're a couple weeks into this, you mentioned that hotels can do large events of up to 300 people. There's more places to go, things to do. The weather's nice.
Right.
What are some of the early trends and opportunities that you're seeing that you think will play out over the next couple of months this summer?
So it's interesting. You're absolutely right. It's all about clean. People want to see how you're cleaning. They want evidence of the cleaning. As you know, Hilton's partnering with Mayo Clinic and Lysol, very similar to Cleveland itself. The endorsement of the two of the highest, most credible institutions. But we actually are going to have evidence of the cleaning, which is our rooms will be sealed with a sticker. So the guest will be the first one to open it. And there'll be a wrap around the remote. We're calling them high touch areas, wraps around certain areas. On the mirror, we're going to list the 7 areas that are cleaned at a higher level. We've always cleaned. So this is kind of like a weird thing to talk about, but it's just a much higher level, hospital level, and just a level of assurance that these areas are being cleaned. So the guest wants to see that sticker, wants to see what we've done. Meetings are really interesting because, there's going to be a blend of virtual and then on property. So what we're finding is that with the virtual meetings, the people that are at home, how do you make them feel like you're a part of this meeting after they've paid a fee or, they're garnering a certificate or education? So there's going to be this tactile delivery to the virtual attendee is what we're seeing, where they're getting a binder, maybe some handouts, maybe a t-shirt from Cleveland, maybe the clean packet. A lot of the things the on-property guest is going to receive will also be receiving virtually, which I found interesting, because we're trying to figure out, how do you make somebody feel like they're there even though they're not there? Whether it's some popcorn from Campbell's or, that's delivered to them during the meeting. So I thought that was kind of cool that it's the creativity is coming out with our meeting planners. The other thing we're seeing with like weddings is they just want to stay with us, meaning we're going to start doing ceremonies, then the rehearsal dinner and the wedding at the hotel, because people want to move around the least amount, right? So we're seeing a lot more pickup where, the family wants to stay with. I think hotels are going to be a very big draw for weddings, because we can offer that. The guests can stay with us and we can kind of do a whole package with that, which is great. But as we've all said, the most important thing is cleanliness. The most important thing is in showing that cleanliness, right? How are we doing it? The guest wants to physically see it and physically know what we're doing. It's just not, you can't just walk in and assume that they know what we're doing. So it's going to be a lot of pre-information too, on our websites, on our emails that are sent to the guest, on our packets that are sent to the meeting planners. We're going to have suggested seating arrangements. We're going to have suggested menus. We're going to have, similar, you'll see a lot of venues, museums doing time slots, something similar like that for breaks and registration, right? So there'll be a block of people that'll be A, registration, and then A, go to a break, and B will register, B will go to a break, to kind of, encourage that self-distancing, which is so important. Another kind of cool thing I've seen is people are going to be assigned a meeting room, and actually the facilitator is going to move. The people aren't going to move. We're going to, there's going to be a lot of creative things that are going to be developed through this whole process. And I thought that was another kind of cool one, where why are we moving all these people? Why don't we just move the facilitator? Or why don't we just move the trainer? And that seems to be being very well received. They're really looking for us to kind of guide them. I don't think people know, what is the best way to approach things. They know it has to be different, but they're not really sure what it looks like. So I think, Emily and Joe, and you must see this too, we're going to become the educator. They know they need something, and we've got to kind of tell them what we suggest to keep them safe, what we suggest to ensure that everything is clean so they can see that, and then some new ideas of how they can meet and continue to meet. If they can only meet to 300, maybe then 300 will be virtual. Or in addition to their wedding, there's going to be elderlies or people who may not feel comfortable traveling. How do we supply the virtual component to that wedding? So it's really going to be multifaceted and multi-layered, which is going to offer a challenge for all of us. But we're finding a lot of success with it. I think we are. And once again, to what we've said, the more we do it, the more confidence it is. When somebody goes to a wedding or participates in a virtual wedding, they'll say, oh, that's a good idea, I can do that. Or that's okay, I still felt that warm and fuzzy, or I still got the same level of education and information from this meeting. So it's going to be a blend. All meetings, I think, and all social occasions are going to be a hybrid of virtual, on property, and at all different levels. So it's going to challenge us all, that's for sure.
Well, we could probably keep going on, because I think we have a lot that we can talk about and want to talk about. But Jonathan, I know our audience has questions as well. Can you share with us a few questions from the audience?
Sure. We got a few coming in. And so we'll start with this first question. Besides, I guess, the underlying issue being the pandemic, what do you think is preventing people from most from traveling or visiting places?
Joe, do you want to take that one first?
Well, some of it is policy related. Policy in that there are certain events and activities and venues that we can't open, can't hold. There are just certain things that people cannot travel to because the event is being canceled or postponed, or it just doesn't fit within the orders. But there are also policies that on the business side, companies are setting as well. There are a lot of changes to corporate travel policies, which is something our industry is going to need to look at, in the weeks and months ahead, because I've heard from people that work for national corporations that said their corporation has already said their travel policy is no travel 2020. I mean, it's only June. We still have more than half of the year that I don't want to throw away, but some of these companies are reacting that way. So some of it is policy related. I also think that we cannot ignore the economic impact of what's been happening with the employment figures that you see and the uncertainty that people have in terms of the economic side. It's not just about, do I feel safe traveling because of coronavirus? What's the impact on my family and I regarding our finances? There's all these policies in place, and there's the limited but growing options that are out there for travel. Let's see what happens when they do open the doors at Cedar Point, when we do start to have some of those events. Let's look at those numbers and see what the travel sentiment is. We think we know what it is from the surveys, but let's see what it actually is. And then we'll have a better picture for the second half of the year.
Yeah, and I think, it's interesting that you say that, Joe, but I think another thing, obviously, I'm going to go back to confidence and consumer confidence. And I think in a family or in anybody, there's so many different levels. The hotel business is considered essential. I go to work every day. I'm around team members, I'm around guests, and I have a high level of confidence because I'm out. But you talk to even certain individuals in your family, other corporations, if you've been quarantined, or if you know somebody, your confidence is a lot lower, right? So I think that it's people who have confidence have to also really help others that don't have as strong a confidence kind of get over that fear, in a socially responsible way. I mean, we're not asking anybody to do anything that's not uncomfortable. So I think it is confidence, and confidence takes wins. And I always say knowledge is confidence and instills confidence. So it's up to us to educate people again and tell them what we're doing and give them that knowledge so that they do feel more confident. So we all have a lot of work to do, but I think we also have to recognize that everybody comes from a different point of view as to where they are in the workforce or where they are, in their life, as you said, Joe and Emily, and we have to recognize that whole different spectrum, right?
I think just building on that briefly, confidence also comes, and we've really shown this in Cleveland, from word of mouth. So the vast majority of our visitors, our leisure visitors to Cleveland, come to see friends and family. And so as Clevelanders get out and experience Cleveland and support our local economy and see that, their staycation at the Hilton was a safe and clean experience, that their, experience in any restaurant downtown was safe and clean, you talk to friends and family, and that inspires confidence for people to travel to Cleveland. So, I think it's looking at that full spectrum of how we gain confidence as well.
Okay, and once people have made the decision to travel to Cleveland, they're here. What kind of activities are you steering travelers toward? What events, virtual events, can you offer people so that their stay is enjoyable?
So I think the most important thing that we can talk about now, because we've talked about virtual events for the last few months, is that we're seeing so many of our attractions reopen. So now you can move from experiencing the Rock Hall virtually to experiencing it in person on a timed ticket. We're seeing every day more and more of our attractions open throughout the city as well. So there's that, but I think the other place that Cleveland really can shine for visitors is in our outdoors and what we offer in the Cleveland Metroparks and the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. We have more than 55,000 acres of outdoor space. I sort of like to talk about the lake as our front yard and the Cuyahoga Valley National Park and the Metroparks as our backyard. So we're surrounded by green space, which I really think is an advantage at this time.
Yeah, you're right. People feel so much more comfortable being outside, just as you're saying, Emily. So I think our metro parks and our trails are so important right now, and the lake itself. So I think it is a blend. I mean, they're willing, it's like putting your toe in the water. They're willing to go to an attraction, right? But then they want to, okay, now I want to do something safe. And they're spending more time in the sleeping rooms too. We've added a Roku into all of our rooms so they can, kind of decompress then, maybe, and come back and say, like you said, they're out experiencing an attraction, then having an outdoor experience, and then like, okay, I'm going to go back to my comfort zone for a little bit. So I think it's going to be in baby steps, really, like you're saying.
Absolutely.
I can attest, throughout the stay-at-home order, and even more so as the weather has improved in downtown, the North Coast Harbor has been extraordinarily popular. The towpath trail along the Cuyahoga River has also been a strong attraction for, I think, residents downtown, but also from throughout the region. So I think you're exactly right. Those are nice assets to capitalize on for visitor travel as well.
Great.
Okay.
Jonathan?
And so our next question, once people have gotten here and they've experienced, you talked about, staycations and family visits. Are there other trends that you're seeing for leisure travel?
So I think that trends are a bit premature at this point, just because we've just come out of the quarantine time. I do think that staycations are going to be big, and it's going to be that, as Teri and I just talked about, that first baby step that people take. Fortunately, we have great opportunities for that here in Cleveland. So I don't know that I have any other trends. Teri or Joe, have you seen any other trends?
I think it's driving, right, is one trend, right? And I think we all can agree to that. People feel comfortable driving. So anything within a 5-mile radius, I think we're talking about getting into Detroit and Pittsburgh and Chicago and Columbus, and encouraging people to be within a driving range is certainly one trend. And I think it's with the family too. So I think that people that you would want to spend time with that you haven't seen, extended family, is who you'll be asking to join you on that. So I guess I would say, Emily, larger staycations, maybe not just your nuclear unit, but the family, your aunt, your uncle, or people we call in your bubble of safety.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, the data is definitely backing up the driving as leading to a trend for sure.
Yes.
And our next question has to do with outdoor seating. So what do you feel like the impact will be for expanding outdoor seating for restaurants? And how fast do you think Cleveland can move on expanded outdoor seating?
So it's interesting, and Emily, you probably agree with this, you guys. So outdoor, it's generational, okay? So the reason outdoor seating is so popular right now, because the millennials, younger generation, has much more confidence in going out, right? So they want to be outside. But as we start getting confidence in different levels and different generations, they're going to want to be inside, or they're going to want to sit at a bar. Not everybody wants to sit outside, or when we get into the weather. So I think it's a good introduction. I think it's where people feel safe. But I think we are going to have to graduate back to attract everybody. You want to have a nice dinner at a table. You want to be able to sit at a bar. But I think outdoor and the weather cooperating is really helping kind of give the confidence that we've said all along. So I think it's a great contributor. I think it's a great way to ease the consumer back into the market, is through outdoor seating.
When we think about indoor seating, what are your feelings on wearing masks? This is a hot button issue. should guests be required to wear masks? Should they not be required to mask? What are your feelings on mask wearing?
You know, it is a very hot issue, and especially when people travel all over and the laws are different in every state. So what we do is we follow the governor's guidelines. It's that simple. We follow the Ohio governor's guidelines. And at this point, the Ohio governor is saying that guests don't have to wear masks. Now, Hilton Corporation asks all of our team members to wear masks, so we do. And we all wear masks in guest spacing, but we leave it up to the guest to decide if they would like to wear a mask or not. And that is how the state of Ohio suggests we move forward. And we've been very successful with the reopening. We've been the most successful with the reopening. So we just make everybody aware of what the governor is instructing us to do. And we feel confident in his direction. And we've followed it all along from day one, because we do get people that come up and say, why isn't this guest in a mask? Or why is there a party of this many here, right? Because in some states you can only have gatherings of 10, and they come here and they see a larger gathering, and in their mind they may think that's not okay, right? So it's important, once again, the education component is that we list what the governor is recommending, and we put that in the lobby, we put it in all of our bars and in the sleeping rooms, so they are aware of that.
Emily, part of what the Clean Committed campaign is about is making masks and supplies available to the business side of the equation. Any additional thoughts on this issue as you're implementing that campaign?
So, Michael, what we did in terms of, I talked about the consumer card that is in the Clean Kit. We encourage people to wear masks following the governor's guidelines. And we also tell people, that it's also up to the business owner. If they require you to wear a mask, it's their business and they can do that. So we ask that people respect that request. So we aren't in a position as Destination Cleveland to inform or dictate policy. That's not our role, but we do feel that it's important when businesses can make them available, when their staff can be wearing them. I think it goes back again to what Teri's point was in confidence. I think people feel more confident about going somewhere, particularly when they see everyone on staff wearing masks. Again, not our place to dictate policy on it, but we did choose to include them in our Clean Kits.
Yeah, good way to put it.
Joe, I know this has been an issue in Columbus and across the state as well.
Well, not much else to add, but there are many consumers that do not want to wear masks. Let's not mischaracterize that. A great many, and they're very vocal. We had one shot in Ohio in terms of mandating that consumers, guests or other customers, wear masks, and that was for the state of Ohio to pass a requirement, a regulation to do that. The state chose to go the other way. There's no way, it's not tenable for almost all businesses to require it when the state regulation is less than that. And in fact, we had people that were threatening, suing businesses and taking other action. And even if Emily's right, it is within their rights to do that, you'd still have to deal with the nuisance of going through a lawsuit and the expense to defend yourself. We had one shot. Our state standard was that masks are not required for consumers, and you just, in a business environment, I just don't think it's tenable you can require that.
Jonathan, additional questions from the audience?
Well, I wanted to let everyone know that we've been conducting a poll during the broadcast. We asked the audience when they would feel comfortable traveling, and the results show that 60% aren't sure yet. 16% said they've already started traveling. 12% said in about 1 month. 4% said they would feel comfortable in late summer, and 8% in the fall. So I guess my last question would be, what is the last thing, or your most important selling point for getting people to begin traveling again and visiting hotels and restaurants?
I mean, know who you're dealing with, right? I mean, I think go at the highest level of credibility. Go with a brand that you know, and go with a city that you know. I mean, Ohio has done a tremendous job because we've followed the direction of our hospitals, we've followed the direction of our governor, and we've been very prudent all along. Hilton is 100 years old last year, and we are very conservative in our approaches, and we're very conservative is into how we take care of the guest. And we're giving you the confidence with Mayo Clinic and with Lysol, and the city of Cleveland is giving you confidence with all of our highly credible hospitals. So I think that's what you got to look for. I mean, you've got to do your research, and you got to see who has the highest level of scrutiny to keeping everything clean and safe for you and your family.
And I think I would just, I would be remiss if I didn't take this and talk about people traveling to Cleveland versus Clevelanders traveling elsewhere, and that is for our locals to come out and support our businesses and help them be able to, see business come back enough so that they can continue to bring their staff back. And then they have the confidence to recommend Cleveland as a visitor destination for their friends and family in the months coming up. So.
We need to keep telling the story. My two colleagues on this presentation are great at telling the story about why it is safe and why you should have confidence. And there are so many things we all picked up through that discussion. We need to tell that story, keep talking about how we're doing more, we're doing better, and what the numbers are. Teri's right. Look at Ohio versus some of the other, now, we have to, I'm not saying we're going to take out ads, comparative advertising, but I think it's a valid point to say we've done something right? I mean, we've done something right here. So I think all of that adds up to telling our story and pushing for those reopenings that we need, because that tells a story too, to say, we're able to do a little more, people will come.
Well, I think that's a terrific way to end today's dialogue. We're bumping up on the hour, and you've all been very, very generous with your time today. And thank you for being with us, sharing your insights and all the work that you're doing to attract visitors, to protect jobs, and all the good things that you're doing in the industry. I guess one of my big takeaways is clean and safe is an important brand right now. And the Downtown Cleveland Alliance, we've invested a lot of time and energy in creating a clean and safe brand for downtown. You all are doing the same in your industry. And Joe, Emily, Teri, I think you closed on a terrific point about the leadership Ohio has shown over the last couple of months in keeping our fellow citizens and our fellow Clevelanders safe. And I think that's going to help us in the summer. It's going to help this industry over the next couple of months. And we're just very happy to be your partners and look forward to working with you.
Thank you. I just want to give you a shout out, Mike. You have a list published of all the restaurants that are open downtown and of all the attractions that are open downtown. So I think if anybody wants to know what there is to do downtown, just go to the Downtown Alliance website, and it's current. Because sometimes, the web isn't current and certain things aren't current because everybody's so busy can't keep up. So I think that's a great source for you to make some plans, and look forward to welcoming you downtown. And thank you.
I appreciate the plug, Teri. Yeah, you can visit us at downtowncleveland.com. And I look forward to seeing each of you and all of our viewers visiting us downtown in the coming weeks and months as well. Thank you. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Teri. Thank you, Joe. Thanks, Jonathan, and see our audience next week for the Downtown Now webinar, Thursday, 3 o'clock. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.